find them, never leave a trace. Blockchain, block party, meeting face to face. Best builders in the game, working at their pace. Scrolling through the tickers, wallet loaded, ready. Diving in deep, keep the mindset steady. Builders stacking code like Tetris blocks. Innovators pushing boundaries, no padlocks. Mining for diamonds, secrets in the hash. They'll find gems, make that portfolio splash. Talking with the legends, future so bright. Crypto dreams at dawn, shine into the night. Smart contracts, decentralized plans. Talking to the master, shaking high-tech hands. Riding on the chain revolution.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Late Night on Base. I'm your host, Bill the Bull, back at it at the podcast studio. But today, oh my friends, we have a banger episode with a very, very special guest, a man who needs very little recognition, and his name is Kain from Synthetix fame, and we're here to talk about Infinex. So let's dive deep. But before we start about the project, I have one very important question for you, Kain. Probably the most important question of the day, and it is, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. I've been up for 3 hours and already we've got chaos in the timeline. It's fun.
Waking up in Australia, seeing the chaos on the timeline, especially with base going on today, it's a great day. It's never a dull day when you're building on chain. But listen, today's episode I'm excited about. And the reason why I'm excited is not just necessarily your stature and what you've been in the space, but it's always great to talk to real builders transforming the way things are done. That's going to affect the real world. And especially with Infinex, what you're trying to do is build that one solution, one-stop shop app, the go-to app that is going to bring in the masses, because complexity is not what's going to drive in the next 1 to 2 billion users. It's simplicity. So, Kain, obviously a lot of people know about you from Synthetix, but maybe they're trying to understand Infinex for the first time. If you don't mind, can you explain what is Infinex?
That's a very good and difficult question, it turns out. This is something that we internally have been trying to work through for a while now. We started off with this idea of building a centralized front end on top of DeFi protocols, right? Perps was the initial idea, right? Build a centralized layer on top of decentralized perps to make it as easy as possible to trade, but still be non-custodial. And then what we realized is that if you did that, then you probably need to do other things, because people don't just want to do perps. They want to do spot trading. They want to be able to do lending. They want to be able to earn yield. There's all these different things that people want to do on chain, and there's different chains that they want to use. And so we realized that the scope of what we were trying to build was much larger. And the closest kind of analogy that we could come to is it's like on-chain Binance or on-chain Coinbase, right? It's what you get from Coinbase, where you go and you can do all the things you want to do. You can stake ETH, you can buy spot tokens, you can buy every token, Bitcoin, XRP, etc. And then I think what we realized is that was still too limiting. Being an on-chain exchange, right, was still too limiting. And there are so many things that are available on chain that you're never going to be able to put into a single platform. And so what we realized is we also needed to be a wallet, and we need people to be able to take their Infinex account to other places and connect it to other dApps and other on-chain apps. And so what we, I think, have eventually evolved to is we are like a super wallet, a wallet that lets you do everything. Anything that you can think of on chain, you can do with Infinex. So that's kind of the goal today, is to be this next gen wallet that allows anyone with simplicity, which I think is the key term, as you put it, to simply do anything on chain.
And I think that is paramount to the success of, the first generation cycles. Crypto moves so fast. What was good in the 2021 cycle is antiquated, in my opinion. Now it's 2025, and people need simplicity. They don't want to be stuck with bridging onto different EVMs and learning all that stuff. That's like, your grandma's not going to do it, right? You need to make it simple, and that's what's interesting about Infinex. So I want to kind of take a look at, the app. I want to kind of run through things, because there's actually one feature that was shown to me that I just think is super cool. Sorry, we have a little technical difficulties here. One of the super cool features is the whole, and we'll get to it, is the whole when you're bridging to another chain and then you can instantly buy. I think that's phenomenally cool, and we'll show that. But let's talk about the app. All right. So Infinex meet a new kind of crypto app designed for humans. Effortless, non-custodial, easy recovery, store and Swidge. I think that's the word. Swidge 1,000 tokens vault. Okay. So Kain, walk me through this. All right. So say I'm a new user, and we're going to get into the competition. We're going to get into a lot of details, what your thoughts are on base and all that. But I want to come from the point of ease of use, because again, that to me is very easy. Walk me through it. So say I'm a user, say I'm someone's aunt, uncle. I feel I want to get on chain. How difficult of a process is it starting from me typing into this website? What do I have to do?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to point out is crypto. We are in an interesting place in crypto, right? Today, in kind of early 2025, where there are a lot of people who have crypto already, whether it's on a centralized exchange or they've got, Coinbase wallet, or they have MetaMask, or Soulflare or Phantom. We are really focused initially on those people. So not necessarily the normal user who's never had crypto
Okay.
before. We think there's an opportunity, and I think this is very similar to the base philosophy, right? There's an opportunity to bring people from a centralized exchange on chain. That's what we're trying to do as our primary goal, right? And even within that cohort of people that have crypto, there are different segments. There are people who are in the trenches, degens that are trading meme coins and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, all the way out to someone who has some Bitcoin on Coinbase, who looks at it once a year and doesn't ever do anything, right? And so the kind of layers of the onion, I suppose, that you're peeling back are starting with degens, being able to accommodate what they want to do. They want to be able to find any token. They want to be able to trade contract addresses. They want to be able to, go to whatever the latest chain is as quickly as possible, bridge easily, and have good execution on their trades. And then from there, you've got people that want LSTs and LRTs, yield bearing tokens, where they can earn, 2%, 4%, 12%, 20% yield. And then you've got people who just want to be able to buy some Bitcoin and hold it securely and non-custodially. And so that's the process that we've been kind of going through in terms of which features to roll out has been very much determined by who are these archetypes that we're targeting initially. And then eventually, in order to get your aunt or someone's grandmother, we need to be able to have on-ramps that let someone very easily with a credit card or by bank transfer or ACH or whatever, move 50 or 100 or $500 into crypto and make that as simple as possible. We're not there yet because we haven't nailed the core value prop yet for everyone on chain. Once we do that, then we will start to go to that next layer up of people who don't yet have crypto, because that's the ultimate goal.
Got it.
But
Yeah.
today it's really accommodating the existing people who already have crypto.
So you're accommodating the Web3 natives who obviously understand the centralized exchange users who you want to target that market and not your aunt and uncle, which makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about this Swidge concept. So to me, that was the one thing that really was super interesting when I heard about it, because I'm a degen, I'm in the trenches, and one of the things that I find very annoying, if I'm honest, like say I want to go on Solana and I have base ETH, I have to first bridge and I have to do all that things, wait for it. And then once I'm on Solana and I want to ape something, then I have to ape it. It just, and it's a lot of times time is of the essence. You know what I'm saying? Like this is not something that like you can wait around when you're in the trenches. From what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kane, but the Swidge allows you to bridge and swap instantly.
What we've done is, and this is where our architecture is different to many platforms that people in crypto have used, right? So there are platforms that allow you to, bridge. If you think about a centralized exchange, right? Like a centralized exchange is a very good bridge. It's just a centralized bridge. You can go from Bitcoin to ETH or Sol to ETH. You're just inside a database, right? But it's still a bridging function, right? You're moving from one chain to another, and it doesn't cost you anything, and it's very fast. On chain, most people are used to using dApps. They're used to going to a platform that is a decentralized front end to some contracts that are on chain. The problem with dApps is they're thin clients. and that means that they don't know. They don't have any stake. They don't know about all of the different things that you as a user with your wallet or different wallets could have. And so that it's very hard for adapt to be opinionated about
Mhm.
how to do things. So with Infinex, we are more like a centralized exchange in that we have a backend, we have databases, we have all of these different services and APIs that create this full stack application, but we then connect to the various chains. And so what we've done with Swidge is basically take about 15 different DEX aggregators and DEXs and integrate them and then put an abstraction layer above that that will essentially route the order to find the best fill. And there are existing solutions like this, DEX aggregators, but typically they have a hard time because the DEX aggregators either need to be on chain or they need to be a DApp because
Mhm.
they need to be completely decentralized and accommodate someone being able to connect MetaMask to it or Coinbase Wallet or Phantom. Because we have everyone's assets in the platform, we have a lot more flexibility in how we route orders, how much we know about the orders, how much we know about the different aggregators. And so it's a much better experience. It's much more seamless. We can be opinionated and therefore make the job of the user much easier.
Interesting. All right, so maybe we can show, like I said, if you're listening to this on Spotify, please head over to either Pods or YouTube. We'll have the video component so you can see on screen what's going down. We have actually a video component of the Swidge live in action because I think it's super cool. And I think this is kind of like a game changer. And I do want to tap into like all these other, the gamification. I know you have a lot of other things, the DeFi yields and stuff. But let's share this video because I think it's cool. So here it is. We have a Swidge in action, USDC to Sol. It gives you the acquired amount of Sol, and I assume this is USDC on a different EVM chain. And just look how fast this is. This is probably less than 15 seconds, and you just switched USD to Sol. Switch complete. Now you have Sol, and that is insane. You need to give a raise to your dev team. Like this is
I think they're doing pretty well. They're doing
okay.
excellent.
Okay, you take care of them. You take care of them. I mean
Yeah.
that internally though. Would you say that the Switch is one of the most important things that you are proud of?
I think so. The funny thing about Swidge and even passkeys, right? So one of the components of there is the passkey. When we were initially looking at passkeys, personally as a crypto degen, I
Yeah.
was like, I don't trust this. This seems dicey. I don't know. And we were reviewing it, and around about the time that we were trying to make a decision about this, Coinbase Wallet launched the beta version of the passkey based
Yeah.
signing, and we were like, all right, if
Yeah.
Coinbase is willing to do it, then we should be ready to lean into this, and we did. And that has been amazing because we don't have passwords. We've never had passwords in Infinex. It's always been passkey based sign in. So we've never had to deal with like password
Mm.
leaking or people trying to get phished or whatever. Like we've just sidestepped all of that. But the other thing is that passkeys are now so embedded in most operating systems that it is just a much faster way of confirming your intent to execute a transaction. And so it can really reduce that user interaction time. And something that would be 3 clicks is now 1 click. That kind of UX improvement, even though you're not speeding up the chain or
Yeah.
doing anything more efficient, you're actually just creating a more efficient user experience by reducing the number of user interactions. It just feels better. It feels smoother. The other funny thing is when we were first building Swidge, we looked at some of the aggregators out there and we're like, oh, this is actually a solved problem. We'll just plug into them and it's done, right? And what we rapidly realized is like, this is very much not a solved problem. There are still a lot of issues and a lot of edge cases. And so we've spent the last 6 months continuously iterating and honing Switch down so that it can handle those edge cases. It can handle things like layer zero OFT tokens and NTT tokens that allow you to pull liquidity from different places. And to be honest, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of orchestration work to be done to make this even more seamless. We need to integrate more chains, integrate more providers, integrate more dexes. But we're on a path now where I think we really, we see the kind of end in sight where we can get to a point where this is genuinely the best place to trade on chain, and that we just tap into all of the liquidity that's available.
How many chains currently are integrated?
I think we have 10 chains
Okay,
now.
pretty much the most important ones.
Yeah, like I think 5 super chains and then Solana. We've got a couple of SVM chains coming up. We've got Sonic and a few of the, next gen fast chains, Monad, Mega ETH, etc.
Let me ask you this, Kane. What are your thoughts in terms of competition? Do you think Phantom or Base are competitors to what Infinex is doing?
Yeah, so it's quite funny actually. We thought it was a bit audacious to be like, our competitors are Binance and Coinbase, right? That already is like kind of crazy. And, that's a big target, right? And I think the realization that we've made over the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks, with this move to be more of a wallet and a platform and a wallet, is that we're now not just competing with Coinbase and Binance, but we're actually also competing with Phantom and MetaMask.
Yeah.
So, we've basically chosen everyone as our adversary, which is a bit wild. The one interesting thing though is that what we've built creates even more alignment, right? By leaning into this wallet idea, it creates even more alignment with chains and even more alignment with applications. So the applications and chains we are very aligned with, in terms of allowing people to easily access all the apps on those platforms. Once the wallet component is ready, combining Swidge plus access to a new dApp is really powerful because to use your example of, you want to go and buy some shitter on Solana, right? And you've got ETH on base and you're, which bridge, and you're kind of second guessing yourself, like, is that still the best bridge or should I use the canonical one? Is it D bridge? Is it, removing all of that is really helpful. But even once you do that, you then need to go and make sure that you've got a wallet that's compatible with that chain. And then make sure that you've got gas in that wallet and not just USDC. So, most of the new platforms, prediction markets, things like that, use USDC. And that creates its own hurdles because it used to be back in the day, it was ETH. So at least if you got ETH into the right wallet, you were kind of okay because you had gas plus the funds that you needed. Now you need USDC and ETH, which means if you don't have some kind of gas abstraction mechanism, you can get the USDC into the right wallet and still be stuck. And so we think that the ability for someone to just go to any new dApp that they hear about on the timeline, connect their Infinex account to it, and if they don't have funds, basically one click move both gas and whatever the collateral is that they're using to interact with that dApp is a really powerful experience. And we'll just make it so much easier for people to try new things. It removes the friction and cognitive load of, oh, I want to try out this new prediction market, but it's going to be painful. I'll do it tomorrow. Now it's just like, oh, you're on there. You just click a button, you're connected, and you can use it.
Yeah, friction is a deterrent to a lot of people. There's a lot of cool stuff, even from like a crypto native like myself. I know this space very well, but if people or apps are making it harder for me to do it, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to deal with it. So
Yeah.
the less friction you can create, the better opportunity. So Kane, I want to, one of the things different about my podcast and some of the others is obviously talking about the project is the most important thing, but to me and my audience, what's very important, especially on base, is getting to know the why of the founder, because without that why, without that dedication, that excitement, users are going to feel like, why should they care? But I can tell you're very passionate about what you're doing. My question to you is, Kane, why aren't you sipping a pina colada on the beach and enjoying
Yeah.
retirement as a young man, yet you are in the grind, in the trenches, in crypto, pursuing what you feel is going to make a difference in the world, and that is Infinex? Why?
Yeah, it's a very, very deep question. We could be here for a while. First of all, I tried retirement and some cocktails on the beach. It didn't suit me. It didn't suit me at all. And so, I had to pivot away from retirement and find something to do with my time. I think in terms of how I got here and building again in the space, having built Synthetix, there was always a sense after DeFi Summer for me that like was a bit dissatisfying. We built all of this amazing infrastructure and we never really connected it to the real world for a bunch of reasons, right? Some of it was just time, maturity, etc. But I feel like we were stuck in this mode for a very long time, both before and after DeFi summer, where we were building for enthusiasts. And genuinely, like, I had this feeling, and I think a lot of the early DeFi builders had this feeling, that our job was not to build things that were easy to use, but our job was to actually educate the users on why it was important for them to do hard things.
Mm,
And that's insane on some level, right? Like, we had a bunch of enthusiasts who were willing to crawl over broken glass to do this stuff for ideological and nerdy reasons. They like the tech for tech's sake, etc. And that's a very small cohort of users in the world, right? You can't just manufacture more of them. It's not very easy, right? The end user, the average end user, just wants to do a job. They just want to do a thing, and they want it to be easy. And trying to explain to them why they have to do this hard stuff and why it's so important and so amazing and powerful and incredible is just not going to do it, right? And this is true for any technology. Look at LLMs were around for a while. It was not until it was put into a chat GPT wrapper
mm,
that it blew up. You could go and use like DeepMind. There were a bunch of things that were going on that were super interesting that people who care about AI had been paying attention to for a long time. But the end user just was never going to care about that, because you got to run a model inside of like
yeah.
some environment. Like, so put a wrapper around it and you can just talk to it, done. Then it blew up. Then you saw one of the most amazing scaling situations in history. And so I think that my sense is that we needed to approach this in a different way. The way that we were doing it was wrong, and we needed to meet users where they lived. And I was in a unique and privileged position to do that. I was in a position where I had enough resources and clout to be able to try to meme this into existence and fix one of the mistakes that I had made early on in building in DeFi. And so I felt an obligation to do it, and find a way to build things that would bring the power of DeFi to users without requiring them to have a PhD.
I love it. And yeah, I think it's funny. Not everyone's suited for the retired life. I'm definitely not there, but I don't think I would want to. I think I would be bored, man. There's
It
only
was
so many.
dark. It was dark. It wasn't just boring. It was
Uh,
quite chaotic and dark. So
well, I hope you're in a better place now with this
much
new.
better. Work definitely suits me.
That's I definitely agree with you on that. So let me ask you, Kane, because obviously another component of my show is, as an entrepreneur, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, plenty of people who are, in crypto technically are following a path that's not normal, right? And a lot of them are entrepreneurs, builders, whatever. And so having advice from a successful entrepreneur goes a long way. And I know in your journey, whether through Infinex or Synthetix, life hasn't always been easy. Can you, I guess, elaborate on potentially some sort of difficulties you faced along your way in any of the projects, and sort of like things that you didn't foresee but yet you've overcome? You have any thoughts on that topic?
It's funny. I actually had lunch with a new portfolio company
Mm,
of ours. So I have a prop fund that's based in Lisbon called Bodhi. That's been around. One of the co-founders of Synthetix and I started in 2019. And a founder came and had lunch with me yesterday. And it's been quite interesting, because so many of the challenges that he is dealing with, as a first-time founder, are really salient to me, because I'm actually going through it again in building Infinex. And in the past, when I would have a conversation with someone, Synthetix was, especially the early stage stuff, that was like 2017, 2018.
yeah.
Like that was quite far in the past, in a different era as well, right? And so I oftentimes would find it hard to kind of connect with the challenges that a first time founder was facing. Of course, there's some pattern matching that you can do, but today I feel much more connected. Like, I viscerally feel the pain of, like, how do you deal with hiring issues, and should you have an office, should you not have an office? I think the thing that clicked for me in my startup journey when I was building Blue Shift, which was a startup before Synthetix, was this idea of trying to identify the outcome that I was looking to achieve, right?
Mm,
And that is a very good framing I've found for almost every problem, right? Whether it's a marketing campaign that you're contemplating doing, right? Like, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve here? And does the thing that we're planning to do actually achieve that outcome? Is there a different way that we could achieve that outcome? And even, to take a step further, like, is this outcome even a good outcome? We're about to do this thing, and this is the inevitable outcome. Do we want that? And it's a very good framing for almost every single startup problem, from very micro problems to very large problems. And once I kind of developed that framing and really developed that way of thinking, it also allowed me to let go of mistakes and accept that mistakes were an inevitable part of the startup journey. And I think that that's something that in my early startup career was really hard. I would try to find ways to have not made a mistake,
Yeah.
to justify that. No, that was actually fine. A lot of cope, and no, it's okay. We're gonna, we're doing this, and it was good that we did that, etc. And being able to just accept that the outcome that I was attempting to get was either a bad outcome, or we didn't do the right set of steps to get the outcome. And therefore, we need to take a step back and go, okay, why didn't we get the outcome we wanted? What can we learn from that? And how do we iterate on that? And really have this kind of iterative approach. That to me is the frame of reference that I look at every single problem in startup land. And I think it's a very good framing. And it's something that requires sort of casting off ego a little bit as
Yeah.
well, and sort of accepting this is the process. Like, the process that you signed up for as a startup founder is like, bad shit is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to accept that bad stuff is going to happen, if you can't own the fact that bad things are going to happen, then you're going to have a bad time. And so making peace with that, and really trying to look at it through this frame of, what outcome am I looking for here? And if I don't get it, how do I pivot to get that outcome? That to me, irrespective of what the problem is the frame of reference that I try to look at things through.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal advice. And I think for any entrepreneur, it's never going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be roadblocks along your way. You're going to make mistakes, but just embrace it. That's part of the journey. Embrace, learn, and let go. I think that's very good advice. Hey, let me ask you before we kind of wrap things up. Infinex, 1 year from now, let's put our imagination to the test. Meditate, whatever you got to do. Where would you like to see Infinex 1 year from now?
I think I would like to see Infinex as the primary interaction point for the new chains that are launching. That's the thing that I think we're really trying to lean into. So if you are a user that is already crypto native and you're excited about Mega ETH or Monad or Fogo or one of the new chains that's launching, that the way that you interact with that new chain primarily is via Infinex.
I think I'm not really a betting man because except maybe in the DGen life. But if I were a betting man, I would not just because you're on the show, but I wouldn't bet against you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Look, I'll be honest, it's taken a lot of time for us to figure this out, right? Like, this has not been a linear path through this problem space. It has been a very painful journey to figure out exactly what does the world need? What does the world need Infinex to be? Figuring that out has been extremely challenging. And that's the startup
This is
world.
part of the
That's
journey.
life. That's it, right? Like, that's the thing. That's being able to do that and go through that process and have everyone buy into it is startups. That is what a startup is. And so, I think that we are getting to a point now where we have far more clarity than we've had in the past about what we want to be when we grow up. The nice thing about that is having some clarity there means now you can just, focus on the execution and
Absolutely.
actually, run towards it.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, I have to ask you this, otherwise Base will stop allowing me to do podcasts. What are your thoughts, in good or bad? Please say the truth. And
Yep.
you've seen around all these chains. Truly, what are your thoughts on Base? And do you think it has a place to become, the top L2?
So I think that Base has been the savior of the super chain. So I've been very aligned with the super chain since day zero, day negative 380 80 or something like that, right? It was Uniswap and Synthetix that were the two projects that really leaned into optimism and the OP stack. So I've been a big fan of Base since the launch. Obviously, today has been a challenge. You're talking about challenging days in startup life. Today has been a challenging day. I think there's a big opportunity for some self-reflection and ownership in terms of, what is the outcome that Base is looking for? What were they trying? Like, if we look at that frame of reference, right? I think the outcome that Base was looking for is attracting traders. That was the goal. Let's try and attract more traders. There's a lot of places, Hyperliquid, Solana, where there are a lot of traders, a lot of trading activity, and Base has a lot of trading volume, but I think most of it comes from more organic sources, if you will, right? People who are just buying a token because they want to hold it, and there's just a lot of people who are doing that, and so you get a lot of volume. But I don't think that Base feels like they are a place for traders, right? So the outcome that I think that Base and Jesse were trying to achieve today was attract more traders, give traders more stuff to trade. And that outcome was very definitively not achieved today.
Yeah.
Like, just unequivocally, the reaction from traders is kill it with fire. Whatever this is, we don't want it, right? So that isn't to say the outcome is bad. Like, Base should attract traders, right? It's just the path to get that outcome today was not the path. And so I think that requires a little bit of self-reflection, and a little bit of kind of ownership of, okay, just because we were trying to achieve a good outcome, which is attract traders to the Base ecosystem, doesn't mean that our methods were good, right? Doesn't mean that the thing that we did today was good, right? The thing that we did today was bad. The market has said it's bad. We can say the market's wrong, or we can accept ownership and say this was not the right strategy, right? This strategy was off. And I think that that's a hard thing to do, but Jesse is the type of guy that is very open to feedback. And I think I hope that with a little bit of distance, it's hard to take criticism,
Sure.
especially crazy, wild criticism like you get on the timeline, right? It's very difficult to take that and especially when it's not well-meaning. Right? This is not, gentle feedback,
Yeah.
right? This is like, you're a monster and we want to kill you, right? It's hard to not react to that, to not be reactive. And so I hope that with a little bit of distance from this event, that there's some self-reflection inside the Base ecosystem to figure out, okay, the thing we wanted was good, the way we tried to achieve it didn't work. How do we go about this in a different way? What do we learn from this? What is the market telling us that they like and don't like about this approach? And I think if Jesse and the rest of the team can pull that off, this will be a huge moment in reorienting how Base is actually approaching all of the ecosystem, not just the core Base builder ecosystem that they've been really curating, but the wider ecosystem of traders and degens and other people that haven't necessarily meshed with the Base story yet. And this has highlighted that. So I think there's an opportunity to really go back to the well and think, okay, how do we do this better next time?
Yeah, and I think, to the credit of the Base team, I know that they're trying to innovate. They don't always get it right, but they're trying. And so I know, I think it'll be great if you talk to Jesse about this, and having your insight, I think, would go a long way. So the future, we'll see how it goes. But Kain, any last words that you have for any of our audience about Infinex? The floor is yours, my friend.
There is a new campaign that we are about to launch in the next few weeks in partnership with Kaito. So if you're a yapper and you like yapping, then definitely get your Infinex account set up and check it out so you are ready to go when that campaign launches.
Incredible. Kain, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. It was fun.
It was fun. If you're on Spotify, everyone, please head over once again to YouTube or Pods Media. We'll have this trending on there. There you get to see the video. And we're also going to make sure to put all of Infinex's social accounts, their X, their website, so you can actually use the site. Of course, you will always have late night on Bases information as well. If you haven't done so already, literally just like and subscribe. It's free. Maybe it will get me a new studio. I don't know. But until then, everyone, this has been a pleasure. This has been Bill with Kain from Infinex. See you guys next time.
Thanks, Bill.